Okay? It's not, you know, you stop and you start and you stop and you start and you stop and you start. You're not going to get a good result that way. I'm sorry, you're just not. I hate to break it to you. It might mean you might have to wait on getting that edge up. It might mean that you might have to wait on getting that refill. I'm going to keep it real with you. Okay? What's more important to you? All right? And you cannot get mad at your spiritual worker because you waited X amount of time to go forward with the next step. There's a reason why there are steps. Okay? It's not designed for you to just do what you want. It doesn't go that way. Sorry. Next. You know, everything is a learning experience. There's a reason why us as spiritual workers can't, I'm going to say, spend hours and hours on the phone with you. I'm going to let you think about why. Number one, any full-time spiritual worker, I mean, everybody works differently, but most spiritual workers, or some of them, are either up at the crack of dawn before the chickens for various reasons, or maybe they may start about 8 o'clock or so. Maybe. So there's a lot of things that have to be done so that you, the client or student, doesn't feel you're being taken advantage of, that your work isn't being done. And you have to also respect other clients. I know you feel as though your work is a pressing matter, but so is everyone else's. Okay? So, let's say, for example, spiritual worker A wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning. 6 o'clock in the morning, spiritual worker might have children. They might have pets. They might have a spouse. They have to take care of them, and then they start taking care of you. Or maybe at the same time. Depends, again, on the spiritual worker. We have to do consultations. Then after we do the consultations, work has to be done. Then we have to do follow-ups. Now, depending on the spiritual worker, that could be all day. Sometimes we don't get to see our spouses or children until late. I done drunk from the wrong side of the mug. And guess what? I'm not going to edit this. Because that's how I am. Okay, so, you know, you have to understand that. Now, spiritual emergencies. Is it really a spiritual emergency that you have to get on the phone and call 20 million times? So I'm going to help you out with this. When spiritual work starts, if a 9-day candle is burned, sometimes, and I'm just using this as an example, you might start to see results quickly. Sometimes you don't see it till after the candle is finished burning, or lamp, or work, or whatever it may be. You have to give it time. I'm going to repeat this one more time. You must give it time. Listen to what your spiritual worker says. If he or she tells you, you know, this might happen, that might happen, take his or her advice. You, the client, unless you're a spiritual worker yourself or you've dabbled, You don't understand how spiritual workers work. You don't understand spiritual work. It's like me going into a surgeon's office and I'm trying to learn how to set a bone. I can't tell him what to do. So you can't tell your spiritual worker what to do because you don't know. There's a reason for everything. There's a reason why we tell you certain things. And all of these things affect your results. If your spiritual worker tells you, in the case of love, if this man comes back to you, or this woman comes back to you, don't act a fool. And you do just that because you feel as though you've gotten a spell done. Guess what? You're in for a rude awakening. Again, this is not your spiritual worker's fault. This is your fault. Yep, your fault. Now, communication is key. It is key. I understand that. But 10 million emails a day, 5 million calls a day is not going to cut it. And what you will do is piss off your spiritual worker. Just being honest. If you don't listen, you will piss off your spiritual worker. You will. Now, I know there's a client or someone out there saying, well, some spiritual workers, they're like this, and they don't call you, and they don't talk to you, and da-da-da-da-da. And you would be right. Just like there's good cops and bad cops, and good firemen and bad firemen, there are good spiritual workers and spiritual workers that don't give a darn. Now, let's use some common sense here. If you see an ad on Google that says something like, get your man back in 24 hours. And you know that you done did some crap or something that went that. Listen, stop falling for all this flash and dashy stuff. Stop. Use a little common sense. Because I'm going to tell you something. And maybe I'm not speaking for all spiritual workers, and I won't. I'm going to speak for myself and a couple of spiritual workers that are close to me. Okay? I'm going to speak on this. Because you done got conned in different places, that's not our fault. Us that do the work. Now, the next thing with spells. Oh, let me go back to that. Because you spent X amount of money with that person, that has nothing to do with the new person that you're working with. They have nothing to do with that. So you cannot expect them to, I don't know, work for free or work for nothing because of what you went through with another spiritual worker. I can't take my car to another mechanic and expect for him to work for nothing because this other mechanic screwed me. That's not his fault. Maybe he might give me a discount. He might feel bad for me. He might not. It's how it is, people. It's how it is. I hate to say it, but that's how it is. The next thing. Stop blabbing your business online. You know, don't tell people what you're doing. Keep that to yourself. Next up. You have to understand what a spiritual worker guarantees is they're going to do the work. This is how I was taught. The guarantee is that the spiritual worker is going to do the work. They're going to do the work for you. Now, spiritual work is not a science. And I hate to say it, but most of the times when people do not get the results that they desire, is because they did something. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, there are those spiritual workers that don't do anything. But reputable spiritual workers do the work. Now, what happens in between that time? You know, sometimes some spiritual workers will give you percentages. It might work 80%. It might move it. And let's speak about that. There's a spirit that comes to the Misas that my godfather, Papa Hector, gives. Name, I want to make this two. Don Nico and this other name escapes me. But they talk about faith can move mountains. If you doom stuff from the beginning, that makes it even harder to work for you. If you already have in your mind, oh, this is not going to work. And if you're doing work for yourself, you've doomed yourself. As soon as you started, you done messed it up. Have some faith. Now, the next thing is, let's get back to spiritual workers in the science. Sometimes the work may not work 100%. It might work 90% and get you in the door where you had no chance before. It might move something a little more for you. Okay? See, all the people that used to come to spiritual workers, they understood that. And they were happy because maybe the son was going to get, let's say, 5 years in jail. Instead, he got 6 months. There's a big difference between 5 years and 6 months. So sometimes it doesn't work exactly the way you want it. Now let's take a love situation. You work with your spiritual worker, your man or your woman, just not talking to you at all. You want them to come back. You get a phone call. Mind you, they weren't talking to you before. And that's them on the other end. Now, you could say, well, there's nothing is working. It's not working. Oh, I get tired of that. It's not working. Nothing's happening. Well, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, they wasn't even talking to your butt. What do you think? That just happened? That was a fluke? No, that was the work that your spiritual worker did for you. Don't always look for the big things. And some things take more time. And some things just, damn it, can't be done. Excuse me, Papa, but that's how I felt. Sorry. Won't be any more of that. Because I know you watching. But that's how it is. And I think it needs to be, we need to talk about this, because I'm seeing a lot of BS of people that mess up things and then they want to blame their spiritual worker. I'm seeing a lot of that online, and there's no way. And stop jumping from spiritual worker to spiritual worker to spiritual worker. How many different, well, you know what? Let me not ask that question, because a lot of people will go to that hairdresser, this hairdresser, that hairdresser. My god sister, when she get her nails done, she stick with one person, because that person knows how to do her nails right. Okay? That in the same shop, other people there, but that one person does her nails just the way she likes it. That's how it is. Why? Because she's built a rapport with that person, and they understand each other. So you can't just go from you jumping, and then you have two spiritual workers working on the same case. You can't do that unless those two spiritual workers are in the same house. They're I don't know, husband and wife, brother and sister. I don't know. But that's the only way. Unless there's some type of mutual agreement between spiritual workers and you get them together, and I don't know. But if you go over here and you tell this person your problem, and then you go over there and then you pay for work over here, this person could be working with spirits that don't get along with that person's, whoever is doing the work. And guess what? Spirits talk in the spiritual world, and some don't mesh. So you just messed up your own spiritual work because you couldn't wait. Because you wanted to be slick. Really? But then you want to blame the spiritual worker. Oh, and this is another favorite of mine. Yeah, this is a little long one because I want you all to know these things. You can't sit here and go to another spiritual worker, lie, make up, I don't know, whatever you're going to tell this other spiritual worker about another spiritual worker, and think that, I don't know, tell the person there's a reason why they're a spiritual worker. There's a reason why they're in tune with their spirit. Stop. Next, just because you pay your spiritual worker does not mean that they are at your beck and call. No, this is not how this works. Sorry. Get a dog. And guess what? Some dogs, sometimes they don't listen to you. So scratch that off. You must be in harmony with your spiritual worker. You must find a spiritual worker that you're going to rely on, work with, be honest with, communicate well with. Both on that one hand washes the other to get results. And don't wait till the last minute to get spiritual work done on a case. You know you've been having this problem for months. Why do you wait till the last minute till things is hot? If you would have handled it earlier on, you probably wouldn't have to put out as much, and your case would have been handled. Jump on things when they happen, or make preventative measures. I'm always about cleansing. Keep yourself spiritually aligned. As my Godfather says, and as he teaches, he says this: By the time you realize and things are starting to show up, you've already done stepped in the mud. It's all over you now, but now it's just starting to show itself. So you got to get a hold of these things, stay ahead. Again, spiritually invest in you, okay? Buy yourself a spiritual bath once a month, if that's what you can afford. And I'm going to reiterate this one more time. There's a difference between when a spiritual worker makes your bath and you do it. Big difference. Okay? Unless, once again, you're a spiritual worker or you have some knowledge of some things, because once again, there's a reason why the spiritual worker is who he or she is. Okay? Even if a spiritual worker tells you how to do it, it's not the spiritual worker. Well, that's this part of the segment, because I have some more coming today. But I kind of made this a little long, but the other ones will be a little more brief. But I hope you get the information and you understand what I'm talking about. And I will see you in a little bit. Okay, Mambo Sandy signing off.